Okay, so like I said, in this project, we're going to get into working with the Fetch API, making an HTTP request to a third-party API that gives us dad jokes. But before we get into any of that, I just want to create the HTML and CSS, which isn't going to be too much, so we can get all that done in this video. So let's go ahead and change the title here to dad jokes. And there's not going to be much here. We're going to have a container that wraps in H3, and in this H3 we'll say don't laugh challenge, and let's have a div here with an ID of joke, and then I'm going to give it a class of joke for styling. So basically this is where the joke is going to go. I'll just put a, you know what, we'll just do this, joke goes here, and that's going to be replaced once we make the request and we're able to put the joke into the DOM. And then we want a button to get another joke, so let's create a button here, and let's give this an ID of joke btn, and then we'll give this a class of btn for styling, and say get another joke. Okay, so we'll save that. Doesn't look too good, so we're going to jump into our style sheet here, and let's see, let's give the body a background color. So background color is going to be 686 DE0. That's going to be our background, which is a blue. And let's see, we want to leave all this stuff center, good. And then our container that wraps around everything, I'm going to set that background color to white. Okay, so we'll go ahead and save that. Some other things we want to add to this container is a border radius, so we can give it some rounded corners. Let's do 10 pixels, and I'm going to add box shadow. I'm going to add 2 shadows, which I'm actually just going to paste in here. Or yeah, 2 shadows. We have this first one here, so 0, 10 pixel for the offsets, 20 pixel blur color, and this one here. So if we save that, you can see we have rounded corners and we have a bit of a shadow. Now we need some padding to take all the content away from the edges there. So let's do 50 on the top and bottom, 20 on the left and right. And then let's align everything, text align to the center. And let's set a max width to 100%. And I'm going to set the width to 800 pixels. And let's actually add a little bit of padding on the body, just so we have some space on the side on these small screens. So I'll say padding 20 pixels. All right, now for the content in the container, let's do the H3. So H3, I'm going to set the margin to 0, and I'm also going to give it an opacity of 0.5. just to kind of give it that transparent look. And I'm going to set letter spacing to 2 pixels. Okay, now for the joke, so we have the class of joke, which right now just says joke goes here, but this will be the joke that we fetch from the API. So I'm going to set this font size to be 30 pixels. And let's set the letter spacing, I'm going to set that to 1 pixel, and I'm going to set the line height to 40 pixels, and margin is going to be 50 on the top and bottom, and we'll say auto on the left and right, so it gives us plenty of room, and give it a max width of 600 pixels. Okay, so that's the joke. Now the last thing we have is the button. So that has a class of btn, and I'm going to give that a background color. Let's say background color, and that's going to be hexadecimal number, which is going to be 9F68E0. So purple color, and border will be 0, And let's set the border radius on the button to 10 pixels. Okay, let's make the color white. Actually, I'll move that up there. And let's give this a box shadow as well, which I'm going to just copy. Okay, there we go. Now we obviously need some padding there and change the font size. So let's set, for the padding, we'll do 14 top and bottom, 40 left and right. And let's up the font size, let's say 16 pixels. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's make sure the cursor is a pointer. And that should do it. So now we have our button. We want to get rid of that outline. So let's say BTN, when it's in its focus state, we want the outline to be 0, so we don't have that ugly outline. And when it's active, when we click it, we'll just make it scale down a little bit. So let's say class button, when it's active, meaning when we click and hold, we want to add a transform effect, and we're going to use scale, and let's scale it from 1 to 0.98, so it'll just go down a little bit like that. Okay, so that's good enough for the styling. In the next video, we're going to get into the Fetch API. I'm going to talk a little bit about how that works. I know a lot of you guys already know this, but just for those that don't, it's important to understand at least the very basics about how Fetch works and how HTTP requests work.